Hello all, and welcome to...
Registration is now closed. The game will now commence.
Sorry. It seems you've joined the game too. Alright, let's see what it is. This game is called Theory Crafting. The only rule of the game is no cheating. The first task is to explain Alice in Borderland. Well, that's simple enough. First though, if you want to step out of the game now, just know that there are major spoilers ahead. Good? Alright, let's play. Alice in Borderland is a survival and suspense show, similar to the battle royale nature of Squid Game. We follow the main character, Arisu, and his two best friends. Arisu, unhappy with his life, runs with his friends through the streets of Shibuya, gets a police scare, and hides out in a stall. But when in there, the power goes out, and once they emerge, everybody is gone. When nightfall hits, they see a sign that welcomes the players and says that the game will commence soon. Being the only sign of life since they've been here, the group decides to explore what it could be. While there, they stumble across more people who join the game. Very soon, the group discovers that these aren't just normal games, but death games. This game is of the difficulty 3 of clubs. The game requires them to pick the correct door for multiple different rooms, and if they choose incorrectly, or if they stay in the room for longer than the time limit, well... They're able to complete this game after Arisu measures the size of the room with his footsteps to map out the area of the building and discover the escape room. But they didn't all make it out without a scratch. Shoda suffered severe burn wounds when he didn't make it out in time. They get a minute to gather themselves and walk down the building stairs. But when they make it down, they're presented with something they weren't expecting. The 3 of clubs sitting on a table. After they pick it up, they get an alert that their visa, which they didn't know that they had, has now been extended by 3 days. Luckily, they quickly learn what the visa means/does when a random person walks out of the shadows to say that his visa has expired and that he doesn't want to play anymore. Mere seconds after, he is killed by an unknown entity and the building where the game took place is shut down. Eventually, they realize that these cards are in fact a difficulty type, with the numeric value being how difficult it is and the suit being the type of game. Clubs is a game of balance and cooperation, Hearts is a game of psychology and will manipulate its players, Diamonds is a game of intelligence that will most likely result in only one winner, and Spades is a game of physical strength that will often require combat. They constantly play these games to increase the time on their visa until they encounter a game where only Arisu successfully completes. He gets depressed and is planning on letting his visa run out until a girl that he met in one of his previous games helps him out and is able to get him up again. They eventually hear about a place called The Beach. The Beach turned out to be a quote-unquote utopia that was founded by a man that calls himself the Hatter. This beach's objective is to unite as one to collect all the cards and allow one person to return back to Japan. Of course, it isn't truly like that. People are forced to play the games and are being ruled over by people that are, let's just say, less than stellar. Eventually, everything comes crashing down when a game takes place at the beach itself, with every member being a player. This game is a witch hunt, where they find the killer amongst themselves. It turns into a slaughter, with the higher members of the beach killing everyone else in the hopes that they will eventually find the killer, when it turns out that there was no killer and it was a suicide. Arisu and his friends are able to figure this out and they successfully complete the game. At the very end of the season, in their quest to discover who the game master that's controlling everything is, they discover a secret control area in a subway station. Every screen then turns on to see a familiar face on the screen, congratulating all the players and commencing round 2, which has blimps that present where every game is taking place and the card difficulty of each location. And that's where we end off Season 1, with Season 2 approaching ever so steadily. Whew, we did it. Round 1 of Theory Crafting is complete. Let's see if... oh, it looks like there's another message. Alright, let's see what it is. Round 1 complete. Now on to round 2. In this round, you must answer the question, what is the Borderland? What the hell? This seems a little much, doesn't it? That's a big question to answer. Alright, where do we start? Well, Alice in Borderland is not just a live-action Netflix show, but rather a whole franchise. There are 3 different versions of Alice. There's the 65-chapter manga that went from 2011 to 2016 with its own spin-offs. Then came the OVA that went from 2014 to 2015 with only 3 episodes. Finally, the live-action Netflix series that started in 2020 and will have a second season coming very soon, which is speculated to be the final season, as the first season covered almost half of the original manga. Now, what's the point of me telling this to you? Well, because we have been given all of our answers. We know the entirety of this world because of the manga. So what questions do we not know from the show? Well, we don't know what this person's deal is. We don't know what the subway is for and why everyone inside is dead. We don't know why they are all here in this world. And of course, we don't know what the Borderland is. Luckily, all of these questions have answers. All of these questions will be practically answered at the same time thanks to the convenient flow of how this world works. So, let's go into it. This world that they are in is called the Borderlands. It acts as a border between life and death. Get it? Those who suffer near-death experiences or clinical death are often sent here, but they're not all. The Borderlands also targets people who are heavily dissatisfied with their current lives. Sound like anyone we know? The Borderlands transports a person's consciousness, soul, whatever you like to call it, into a marionette. All wounds suffered in the Borderlands are reflected in the body in the original world, which also means that if you die in the Borderland, you die in real life. When entering the Borderlands, all your memories and experiences that led you to the Borderlands are replaced by artificial ones. Now, the Borderlands presents itself as an almost identical copy of the 23 Special Wards of Tokyo. It parallels Tokyo almost perfectly, as we can see everything that was immobile pass into the Borderlands in the intro of the live-action show, and we can see daylight and weather cycles in the Borderlands. Outside of the wards, the Borderlands turns into a massive forest and mountains. The Borderlands treats time differently than in Tokyo, however. What could feel like months in the Borderlands would be mere seconds for the true body. One full game cycle in the Borderlands takes about 75 Borderland days. Once you leave the Borderlands, all of your memories of it will be lost, but you will still keep the feelings and experiences of it. That's the main overview of the Borderland itself. But let's talk about the actual people in the Borderland. When you are sent to it, you are going to be in one of 2 different groups. You will either be a player or a dealer. Both of these categories have visas, as they are just passing through the Borderlands, but they have very different tasks. The players are who we follow throughout the live-action show. They are required to play the death games within the Borderland, and if they beat their game, their visas will be extended by the level of game difficulty. However, a dealer is meant to supervise the games. They have to set up the games and clean up afterwards, and sometimes they have to participate in a game, as we saw with the taggers in the 5 of Spades game, or even to confuse the players, as we saw in the 10 of Hearts game. The dealer's visa is extended by the number of people they kill each game, but if the players clear the game, the dealer is killed. If anybody's visa runs out, they are killed. This is how Stage 1 is done, which we saw with Season 1 of the Netflix show. Stage 2, however, will be much different. If all of the players are killed in Stage 1, then it is seen as a dealer victory and they will move on to Stage 2. But if all 40 non-face cards are collected, then it is seen as a player victory and all dealers will be killed. In Stage 2, new games will begin to collect the face cards, which are much more difficult and have extremely strict entry requirements. But you may be asking yourself, if Stage 2 is about playing the games, then how would there be any games without any dealers? Well, there is a third group of people I didn't tell you about earlier. I told you about the players and the dealers, but there are also the citizens. The citizens are the creators of the game and do not have any visas, as they are, well, citizens. When all the games are completed, the remaining players have a choice. They have to choose to either return to the Earth in the world of the living, or gain permanent residency in the Borderlands and become a citizen making the games. Now, Stage 2 is run by these 12 citizens. It's the remaining survivors against these citizens who, like the dealers, will be killed if players beat their game. And like we mentioned before, if all of these face card games are completed, then the remaining survivors are given a choice to either return to their old life or stay in the Borderlands. Now that we've discussed what this world is, we can start answering our previous questions. So, what is this person's deal? Well, we know that they're not a dealer, or else they'd be dead, and they aren't a player as they are running the games, so they have to be a citizen. But which one? Well, for that, we have to turn to the manga. There are 12 different citizens, and each of them are represented by a different card and are in charge of that game. There are 2 citizens that we've seen so far in the show. We have seen Keiichi and Mira. According to the manga, Mira is the Queen of Hearts. So now we need to answer, what is this area in the subway and why is everyone in it dead? Well, considering there are screens and monitoring equipment throughout the inside of it, we can easily determine that this is the dealer operations center and everyone inside is dead because the players were victorious in stage 1. The next question we asked is, why are these people in this world? Well, we can answer that question easily. Arisu was not happy with his life, which is why he ended up here, and everyone else could have ended up here in the same way or suffered near-death experiences. The final question,
1 minute remaining.
and just in time, the final question was, what is the Borderland? And luckily, we already answered that question. The Borderland is the border between life and death. Look at that. We completed stage 2 with less than a minute to spare. Now, oh, here we go. Another message. Congratulations on completing stage 2. Stage 3 will now commence. For this stage, you must answer 2 questions. Number 1 is, does anyone truly come back to the real world? And number 2 is, did Arisu truly enter the Borderlands through the stall? Well, these are pretty easy questions to answer, right? I mean, once the remaining survivors complete the game, they're allowed to return to the real world, so the answer would have to be, no, wait, hold on. Something is very wrong here. If we remember what the manga presented the Borderland to do, is that the wounds that occur on the marionette will be mirrored to your real body. Now, if we take a look again at when Arisu is depressed, he is starving himself, which means that he is also starving his real body. Then his new friend forces him to eat, which fills him again. But this creates a very big problem. We see them eat countless times throughout the show, but if 75 days in the Borderland is mere seconds for the real world, then you are killing yourself. When you eat, you overfill your body. If we say that they eat the bare minimum that you would need to not starve to death, which is going to be about 30 days on only sugar and water before suffering any medical consequences, you would eat 2 meals during your time in the Borderlands. 2 meals in your body at once within the span of seconds is not all though, because now we need to consider water. The record for the longest time without water is 18 days with severe medical issues. Let's say that you drank once every 18 days and ate once every 20 to compensate. You have already stuffed your body past its limit at the bare and impossible minimum. We can even take this a step further. If you can die from drowning and lack of oxygen in the Borderlands, then we have to consider the detriment of even breathing in the Borderlands. With every breath you take, you hyperventilate your real body and you will very quickly kill yourself. That's only covering these 2 examples. No matter what, going into the Borderlands will result in the death of your real body, so really, you can never escape the Borderlands, and that would be the answer to the first question. No, nobody ever truly comes back to the real world. Now we need to look at our next question. Did Arisu enter the Borderlands through the stall? Well, I assumed that our last question would be an easy answer, and it turned out to be wrong, so I'm guessing this one would also... I see. We mentioned this towards the beginning of the video. When entering the Borderlands, all memories of the experiences that led you there are replaced with artificial ones. In the manga and the OVA show, you enter the Borderlands through a wormhole, but this wasn't in the Netflix version of the show. But it definitely happened. We didn't see it because the memories were replaced by artificial ones. In the other versions of Alice in Borderland, Arisu is transported by a wormhole after a blinding firework rocket, but in the Netflix show, there was more after that, which would be artificial memories. And that's the answer to our next question. No, Arisu did not enter the Borderlands through the bathroom stall.
To the survivors of the game, we will now supply you with the visa.
Hell yeah, we did it. We won the game. Of course, these are just theories, and the Netflix show could be taking its own directions, but based on the manga, these would be our answers. If you have any other aspects of Alice in Borderland you would like me to take a look at, let me know in the comments below. If you have other questions about any other show, game, movie, or any form of medium, don't be afraid to ask that in the comments as well. And thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.